Hi guys, it's Dr. Lauren here to do our third Instagram live stream on the Girls Talk feed. So I've gotten many of your questions and I'm looking forward to answering them for you today. But first I want to tell you a little story. So since we last spoke last week, if you remember, last week I came and I had wet hair and I was kind of all over the place. Well, since then, I've been super sick. Like in the hospital with a really severe strain of the flu. And what I realized was this, everything with my mission has been going so super well. And I've been doing so much work that I wasn't really sleeping that much. And I was thinking that it was purposeful and that it was part of my mission and something that I needed to do in order to strike while the iron was hot so that I could meet my mission and my purpose and do all of the things that I've been wanting to do for decades. And what I realized in retrospect, because hindsight is always 20/20, is that I think I may have been a little hypomanic over the past month or so without even knowing it. So while I've been talking with you about being rammy and mood fluctuation and mood regulation, I think I was actually in the midst of a hypomanic episode and I didn't even know that it was happening. So there's a lesson in all of this for all of us. I was doing all of the things that I preach all of the time. I was, doing my best to sleep, not really having much luck at it sometimes. I was eating right. I was exercising. I was managing all of my thoughts. I was doing the self-care regimen that I preach. I was preaching this stuff and teaching it every single day. And at the end of the day, I'm always the one to get schooled, just by life. Because no matter what we do, mood fluctuations, if that is part of our biology, they can occur, right? And so we can only control what we can control. We can always try to manage our mental health symptoms and things like that, and we can do our best to do that. That doesn't always mean that they're not going to just come. And that's okay. Okay, so I got through it, and here I am on my feet. My rate of speech is definitely a little slower this week than it was last week. I'm definitely more well rested this week than I was last week. But the lesson here is that this is just part of the human condition. And so while so many times I say that and preach that, today I'm really feeling it because we can do all of the things that are evidence-based that I talk about all of the time in order to manage these symptoms, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to strike. The more that we manage them and the more that we stay on top of them, the quantity and quality of them will definitely be lower, right? So it'll be more moderate. So of course I was still working and doing everything that I love to do, and it's not like anything really fell apart. I just got sick and now I'm getting well. So it could have been a complete disaster. It wasn't because I do all of these things, but keep that in mind. If you're struggling with mood regulation or depression or hypomania or anxiety or ADHD or any of the things that we talk about all of the time, it's really important to stay on track with the lifestyle and the managing your thoughts and behaviors and staying connected with people who love you and getting out and doing it anyway and doing all of the things to take care of yourself. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to strike. It means that when it does, the quantity and quality of the strike will be not as significant as if you're not taking care of yourself. Because I can tell you right now, I didn't have any insight. I didn't know that it was happening until I got out of it. Now I look back and I think, wow, I was really kind of all over the place there for a bit and I didn't even know it. It seemed like everything was firing and I was doing awesome. But that was just probably a symptom. So I just want to kind of tell you that personal story because I thought it's probably quite relevant for many of you. Because a lot of times I always say knowledge is power. Yeah, it is. It's definitely power in the management piece, but that doesn't mean that it stops you from being human. You're going to be human anyway, and these things are going to occur, and that doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. It's not like, somebody said, oh, well, do you feel more like yourself now, Lauren? No, because that's me too. I feel like myself now. I felt like myself then. This is all just part of what it means to be Lauren. And so whatever symptoms you go through, that's just part of what it is to be you too. Okay, so now I'm going to get to your questions. Here we go. How do I deal with motivation if I'm depressed, I have social anxiety, and I'm introverted? Okay, so this is kind of like, there's 3 questions in this question, okay? So depression, social anxiety, and introverted. The first thing is, if you have social anxiety, I don't think that you can necessarily say whether you're introverted or extroverted, because you can't get a true read yet until you get rid of the social anxiety. The other thing is that with social anxiety, depression and social anxiety often come hand in hand, because we're social beings having a human experience, not vice versa. What that means is this: in order for us to feel good as human beings, we need to be connected with one another. If we have social anxiety and so we're isolating and not getting ourselves out there and not connecting with other human beings in a meaningful way, there's no way that we can feel good. So if we have social anxiety and that's causing isolation then will lead to depression. And so social anxiety and depression are kind of like, they go hand in hand. And so the first thing that we need to do is think, all right, so what do we need to manage first? So if we have depression and we have social anxiety, what do we need to manage first? Well, we need to lift mood first in order to be able to put ourselves out there. And the best way to do that is, I always say the same thing, but I'm going to repeat it again. Lifestyle. Whether you feel like it or you don't feel like it, we really need to try our hardest to take care of ourselves physically. So that's the eat, the sleep, the exercise thing. The managing our thoughts. We have to remember that every single human being has up to 70,000 thoughts a day. Thoughts are not facts. So thoughts lead to feelings, and feelings lead to action. If we're feeling something that we don't want to feel, we have to go to our thoughts. A lot of our thoughts are quite faulty sometimes. And so we need to go to our thoughts and see what faulty ones are making us feel bad like this, and we need to manage those thoughts. So to lift mood, we need to manage our lifestyle patterns, and we need to manage our thought processes by stopping our thoughts, checking them out, seeing which ones are faulty, changing them to being something more realistic, and then moving forward. So that might lift our depression a little bit. Once our depression lifts, then we need to go into the social anxiety. So that one, it's really not a difficult fix. It's not a comfortable fix, but it's not a hard one. Social anxiety is actually pretty easy to treat if you're willing to be super uncomfortable in the short term. Okay? So if there's something that you are anxious to do, you just have to do it anyway. One thing that I like to do is, with social anxiety, a lot of times people are afraid, like they don't know what they're going to talk about in a social situation. They don't know who's going to be there. So I like to suggest to people that you kind of take the guesswork out of it by going with a friend. So if you are going to a holiday party and you have social anxiety, the first thing is get a buddy. Use the buddy system. It often works. Say, listen, I'm really anxious to go to this party and I need somebody to come with me. Oftentimes, if we're with a pal, we feel a hell of a lot better walking in. The other thing is, have several conversation points that you can talk about at the party. So instead of walking in and having no idea what you're going to talk with someone about, think about 3 topics that you'd be comfortable talking with anyone about, and just talk about them over and over again. Who cares if you're boring, as long as you feel comfortable, right? So what we want to happen is you're going to say, okay, so at this holiday party, I'm going to talk about going home for the holidays. I'm going to talk about having a nice break from work, and I'm going to talk about what I got for my mom for the holiday. Whatever. 3 topics. Pick them. Doesn't matter what it is. And just talk with every single person at the party about that one topic, and you will be totally fine. Do it for a half hour and get the hell out of there. So you don't have to stay there. You don't have to be the first one to come, the last one to leave. The goal is for you to check it off your list as something that you were afraid to do and you did it anyway. That does a lot for your feeling of self-efficacy, feeling like you can stand on your own 2 feet, be accountable to yourself, and do things that aren't necessarily comfortable for you, but are the best for you long term. And so what I suggest you do is bring a buddy, come up with 3 topics of conversation, stay for a half hour, get the hell out, applaud yourself for doing a great job. So lifestyle pattern, manage the thoughts to increase the mood so that you can walk through the social anxiety, use those different tactics, get out, hopefully with doing those couple of things over and over and over again. By the new year, you're going to be feeling great. Your depression will be decreased, your social anxiety will be decreased, and you'll be feeling great. Okay, now on to the next one. Let's see. Does meditation work for an anxiety attack? Okay, so yes, absolutely. So here's the deal. With an anxiety attack, and on my Instagram feed, actually, I have on a white jumpsuit in this, and I actually explain physiologically what's happening in your body when you're having a panic attack. That might be helpful for you to watch. But yes, meditation definitely works, and here's why. Because your body cannot be anxious and relaxed at the same time. So doing mindful meditation, even when you're not in the experience of a panic attack, like at that moment, but just having it in your day, like doing it in the morning and doing it in the evening so that it's in your pocket as a tool that you can use when you are feeling anxious, is a really, really good idea. So one thing that you're going to want to do is do the mindfulness meditation on a daily basis. Do deep muscle relaxation on a daily basis. Do deep breathing on a daily basis so that you have all of these in your toolbox so that when you do feel panicky, you can whip them out, use them, decrease your anxiety. Remember, physiologically, your body cannot be anxious and relaxed at the same time. Meditation relaxes your body physiologically. The mindfulness relaxes your mind. So definitely a good idea to learn some meditation. There are some great apps, and I'll make sure that I put those on the stories, on Girls Talk stories. Once I'm finished here, I'll look up some good apps that you might want to download for mindfulness meditation. Okay? Okay, let's see here. And if any of you have any questions now as I'm talking, you can certainly put them on here. Okay, let's see. Okay, this person said that she recognizes that she overreacts to things that she thinks will likely be okay in the long run, but she doesn't know how to stop overthinking. So I think we kind of just went over this a little bit with the last question, with the overthinking thing. So she thinks it'll be okay in the long run. Well, of course it will be, right? Everything's okay in the long run. We can only control what we say and we do. We don't have control over very much. And our biggest problem is not that we don't have the control, but that we think that we need to have the control. We don't need to have control over very many things. Of course it's going to work out okay. You're already okay. And so what you need to do to manage the overthinking, a lot of times I'll ask people to, grab the thoughts that are causing the poor mood. And they say, well, sometimes, Lauren, my thoughts are going so quickly that I can't even grab one in order to see what it's saying because they kind of just all mix together. And I completely understand that. I think the idea there is to take a half hour and, calm your mind. Focus by using your senses. What I mean by that is, sight, smell, taste, touch. Feel the fabric on the chair that you're sitting on. Smell the smell in the room. Taste, like if you have a mint in your mouth, taste the taste of the mint in your mouth. Using our senses can get us right into the moment pretty easily. And when you do that, you can kind of grab onto your thoughts a little bit more. And so instead of overthinking and projecting into the future, getting yourself to be right now in this moment is always key for overthinking because we're always okay in this moment. We're always okay right now. And remember, you can only control what you say and you do. And as long as you're always doing the next right thing for you in order to meet your purpose and have the best effect on yourself and those around you, it's always going to turn out okay. Okay, let's see. how to handle a fight with a best friend, who is almost a boyfriend. What do you do? Okay, so here's the deal. Like, how do you handle any fight with anybody? Well, you need to think about, like, where is the fight coming from, right? So you need to think of, what is the reason? Is it that somebody hurt your feelings? Is it ego? Or is it you that's really in this fight? So let's think about the source. This is what I always like to do whenever I have a disagreement with anybody. There are certain values, right? Interests, values, and goals of mine that are part of who I am. And those things I do not compromise, regardless of relationship, regardless of anything. If somebody doesn't respect those things, then that's not respecting me. And so here's the key always, with any kind of argument or any kind of, what you call fight. You always have to stay true to yourself and always have to try to hear the other person from their frame of reference as well. My key is always say what you mean what you say, don't say it mean. So you always state your case, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the other person is going to change his or her opinion or what they're saying to you or how they're feeling. So if you're just having a conversation, but you're not married to any outcomes, that's the goal. So you just need to say what's on your mind. You need to stick with your own interests, values, and goals. Hear the other person out. Hear where they're coming from. Don't expect to change their mind. I think that's a lot of times where people get into, some pretty tricky spots, is when they want to control the conversation and they're married to a certain outcome. They want it to end a certain way. And then we end up manipulating the conversation and not really saying what we mean. The key is just say what you mean what you say, don't say it mean, don't be married to outcomes, and let the chips fall where they may. Because, there are many people that continue on with us in our lives throughout our entire lives. And other people are really important in certain chapters of our lives. And everybody's, necessary at certain moments. And sometimes we grow apart and sometimes we grow together. And we need to be able to accept that for what it is, even when it hurts our feelings. Okay, so there's that. Okay, let's see. Anybody have any other questions? As I'm looking at these, if you have them, just make sure you post them. Okay, let's see. Abandonment fears. This is always a big one, right? So abandonment fears. My boyfriend goes away, and I worry that he won't come back. I think that this may have something that may have started in my childhood. It's not like I was abandoned by my parents or anything, but usually when I needed them most, they weren't available to me emotionally. And so now this person says when her boyfriend's away, she worries that he won't come back. I often talk about attachment style, right? And, how we attach to other people. And we do gain our attachment style from our early childhood caregivers. And there are different types of attachment styles. 2 different types, secure and insecure. Secure is about 54% of the population. Insecure is the rest of us. And the insecure types come in 2 different flavors. The anxious ambivalent attachment style, which is the needy, clingy person, like, baby, don't leave me, I love you. And it's the avoidant attachment style, which those people look kind of secure because they're kind of roaming about the universe and they look like they're doing A-okay, but it's only because they kind of keep people at arm's length, trying to manage their own abandonment, worried that if they get too close, that people might leave them. And so what I'm hearing here with this abandonment fear is, I'm worried when my boyfriend goes away that he's never going to come back. Well, one thing that I've learned, and this took a lot of time, and I think some, age definitely helps. What do you think will happen if that person didn't come back? Like, you have everything that you need in order to get through this life in a healthy and happy way. And we need to make sure that we have our relationships with the people that we love in our lives. We have to make sure that we recognize that love is a pouring out, not a sucking in, right? And so attachment is a holding on, while love is a pouring out. And so if you love this person, and they go away on a business trip and they were to never come back, you would need to know that this person was a compliment to you, not a supplement. And so you already have everything that you need. And that's not to say that you wouldn't mourn a loss. And that's not to say that you wouldn't go through a grieving process, but you would certainly be okay. And the reason I know that is because you're already okay. There's no way that one human being was put on this earth and in need of another human being in order to get through this life and do what they're supposed to do here, right? We all come self-sufficient. We just need to connect with other human beings, and we're all connected, so we all support each other. It takes a village, even for adults. And so, yes, we need other people, but we don't require one other human being in order to be okay in this life. And so I think just knowing that you are it, you have everything that you need, you are your purpose, your place in this world matters, and you make a difference, regardless of who's in your life, that might help just a little bit. And maybe doing a little bit of reading on anxious ambivalent attachment style might help you a little bit too. Okay, now here we go. Next. This one's a good one. All right, so this person is sober, is in recovery from drugs and alcohol. And one thing that she's realizing is that, when she's alone and there's some downtime, she's kind of fantasizing about those old behaviors and different things that she used to do in her addiction. That she certainly is... not looking to go back and do, but she kind of fantasizes and thinks like, "Ooh, God, like that was kind of fun," or, fantasizes about using. And she said like she doesn't really know what to do about that because a lot of times the meetings that she goes to aren't really places that she can talk about all the behaviors that she engaged in her addiction. All right, so here's my thoughts. Number one, thoughts are fine. We all have, like I said, up to 70,000 thoughts a day. We don't get in trouble for our thoughts, right? So we can have thoughts of using drugs and alcohol, and you can have thoughts of doing all of these things. But thoughts don't get you into trouble. Actions do. And so, like, if I have a thought right now, like I'm going to go rob a bank, I don't go to jail because I didn't do anything wrong. It was just a thought. Like, okay, whatever. Let it pass. You can let thoughts pass. You watch them go by like you would watch cars go by on a highway, okay? You don't need to give a thought value. Thoughts only have value if we prescribe them value. Thoughts are meaningless. So here's the deal. If you're having thoughts of using drugs and alcohol and and engaging in all of these behaviors, and you don't feel like you can talk about it at your meetings, then you need to get a sponsor at those meetings. If you're working a 12-step recovery program, then it's really in your best interest to get a sponsor, because when you're having those thoughts, while thoughts don't get us into trouble, a lot of times they lead to feelings, and feelings lead to action, right? Thought, feeling, action. And so you need to make sure that you have a good, solid support system. And what that means in a 12-step recovery program is going to meetings 100%, but also getting a sponsor so that when you're having those thoughts, you can call that sponsor up and be like, "Yo, I'm having these thoughts. What do I do?" Oftentimes, she'll meet you for coffee. You guys can go to a meeting together. She'll talk you through it. But that's the whole deal with the 12-step recovery program. There's many different layers to that. It's not just the going to meetings. It's also getting a sponsor, working through the steps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think what I'm hearing you say is I'm going to meetings and this has been enough for me up until this point, and now it's time that I get a sponsor. So make sure that you do that, and I'd love to hear back from you so that you tell me that you did, okay? Because you need to be held accountable, I think, okay? So make sure that you get a sponsor today. Go to your meeting and just reach out. It might be super uncomfortable for you, but just say to somebody, "Hey, it seems like you've been in the program for a while and I kind of need some support." That's what people are there for. And remember, that's not only helping you, but it's also aiding their recovery too. Okay, so there's that. Let's see. Okay, and the last question that I have here is, I studied something for over 6 years, and I don't know if I want to do it anymore. And I've been having panic attacks to the point that I was hospitalized for it. And I know it's just all social pressure. What do I do? Okay, so if you've studied something and you don't know if you want to do it now after you have, put all this time and money and investment into it, this is what I've learned. At this point, it kind of depends on where you're at in your life with finances and all this other stuff. It definitely costs a lot of money. And so right now, here are my thoughts. You might want to take some time. I wouldn't jump from one thing to the next. If you put 6 years of time and energy into something, my suggestion is do it. Do it at least for a little while. As long as you bring all that you are into all that you do, you're going to be happy. And so, I certainly had not planned when I became a psychologist on doing all of the things with psychology that I'm doing today. It just so happens that, I thought that I would have a private practice and that would be it. But no matter what, you always arrive in your own life. And so I don't know what discipline you've been studying and what you're doing right now, but I guarantee you that if you give it time and you put everything, all that you are into that, you're going to arrive in that discipline. And if that doesn't happen after a little bit, you can think of making a transition, because there's no reason to do something that doesn't make you happy and doesn't feel fulfilling for you, because what would be the reason for doing that? But I'd be willing to bet that if you put everything into this certain discipline that you're doing right now and that you spent all this time and energy studying for, then I guarantee you're going to arrive in that life and you're going to be grateful that you did. So if you have any other questions, please post them right now, because I can see here and I will answer them. If not, you can certainly send questions to me on the Girls Talk website at heylauren@girlstalk.com, or you can post them to the Girls Talk Instagram or to my Instagram, and I will answer them next week. But if you don't have any other questions, then I'm going to sign off for today, and I wish you a great day. Okay? Waiting for like 2 more minutes to see. Okay, so my suggestion for everyone is, I think the biggies here are manage your lifestyle, eat, sleep, exercise, manage those negative thoughts to manage your feelings and your actions. And just because you do that doesn't necessarily mean that some of the mental health symptoms aren't going to just come and go as they please, because we're all human, and this is just part of the human condition, and that is A-okay. It's not a sad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. It's just a part of life. So I hope this was helpful, and I'll talk to you next week. Okay.